Hi guys, and welcome to today's webinar session brought to you by Versio, India's fastest growing professional training and certification platform. Our session today will be on the topic KNN algorithm, which is an important concept concerning machine learning. So let's take a quick glimpse of what we would be learning in today's session. We will be learning about classification and regression, what they are, what are their types, and what they are used for. We will also be having a look at the powerful scikit-learn library, and we will employ various steps that form part of creating a machine learning model using the KNN algorithm, right from fitting the model to predicting its outcome, to training and testing the model, to finding its complexity, and finally to measure its fit and accuracy. We will also be learning about overfitting and underfitting concept, and finally we will be measuring the effectiveness of the model using confusion matrix and hyperparameters. Our session today will be presented by Mr. Smit Shah, who possesses rich domain experience in the field of machine learning, having started his own company, Ample.ai, and also training students in the same for the last few years. You can know more about us and what we offer by visiting our website www.versio.in. You can also access the diverse learning content we have on offer by subscribing to our YouTube channel and clicking the bell icon to receive notifications for new uploads. So without further ado, we will give the stage to the instructor. Take it away, Smith.
So welcome to today's webinar, guys. My name is Smit Shah. I am an AI developer at Ample.ai. It's my own venture where we are building an AutoML platform. Also, I work as a machine learning instructor at two other educational companies called UpGrad and Udemy. So let's start off a session. So in this webinar, we will start by understanding what is classification and regression. Then we will focus on a type of classification called KNN and see how it is built. After that, we will see how we can evaluate the performance of a KNN. Later, we will also look at how we can improve model performance by hyperparameter tuning. So let's dive right into it. Machine learning is all about modeling, not that kind of modeling though. There are several types to machine learning, including supervised learning. Supervised learning is basically a labeling machine. It takes an observation and assigns a label to it. There are two flavors of supervised learning, classification and regression. Let's focus on classification first. Classification consists in assigning a category to an observation. We are predicting a discrete variable, that is a variable that can take only a few different values. Is this customer going to stop his subscription or not? Is this mole cancerous or not? Is this wine red, white, or rosé? Is this flower a rose, a tulip, a carnation, a lily? Remember, we feed the model observations. Let's take college admissions where we want to predict acceptance. For simplification, we showed two features here, GPA and admission test results. We could have more features like involvement in student organizations and sports or prizes applicants have won. And the target is what we want to predict. There are two possible labels, those who are accepted and those who are not. The target can only be one of these two labels, making it a classification problem. Here, our observations are plotted, GPA on the x-axis and test results on the y-axis. So the blue points represent accepted applicants and the red points represent your rejected applicants. We keep 80% of our data to train a model. Because we use just two features, we are able to plot and interpret the results. For us humans, it's pretty clear. If you score above 4 on both the GPA and entrance test, you are accepted. If we added more features like extracurriculars or prizes, we would need more axes. It would be then very hard for us to interpret the data with a human eye. However, a model wouldn't struggle at all. We can use a support vector machine. It sounds scary, but it's just a line separating our points. We train our algorithm and classify the 20% of observations we left aside. It only misclassifies two blue points as red, meaning two applicants were wrongly predicted as rejected. The problem is it tries to separate with a straight line. So it's unlikely to do better than that. What if we allow a curved line instead? Then it classifies everything correctly. There are ways we can tweak our model's behavior, like allowing curves. We'll talk about that later. Now, what about regression? While classification assigns a category, regression assigns a continuous variable. That is a variable that can take any value. For example, how much will this dog be worth? What is this exoplanet's mass? How tall will this child be as an adult? Let's look at some new data, weather readings. Can we predict temperature based on humidity? So we use 80% of the data to train a model. Seems like when the humidity rises, the temperature decreases. Indeed, our linear regression model catches that, making this a good model. According to our model, if the humidity rate is 0.5, then the temperature is 18.5 degrees Celsius. And this is how the model performs on real data. It identifies the trend, but is still bad at predicting. More features like wind, cloudiness, location, season would make it more accurate. It's up to you to choose whether you want to frame your problem as a regression or classification problem. For example, we could predict an exact temperature or a categorical range of temperatures like cold, mild, and hot. This is true for something like age, where we can have categories like baby, child, teenager, adult, and so on. Hope you see the difference between classification and regression. Now let's move on to a different lesson. So now we have a set of labeled data and we want to build a classifier that takes unlabeled data as input and outputs a label. So how do we construct this classifier? We first need to choose a type of classifier and it needs to learn from the already labeled data. For this reason, we call the already labeled data the training data. So let's build our first classifier. We will choose a simple algorithm called k nearest neighbors. The basic idea of k nearest neighbors or KNN is to predict the label of any data point by looking at the k. For example, 3 closest labeled data points and getting them to vote on what label the unlabeled data point should have. In this image, there's an example of KNN in 2 dimensions. So how do you classify the data point in the middle? Well, if k equals 3, you would classify it as red, and if k equals 5, you would classify it as green. To get a bit of intuition for KNN, let's check out a scatter plot of 2 dimensions of the iris dataset, petal length, and petal width. The following holds for higher dimensions. However, we will show the 2D case here for illustrative purposes. What the KNN algorithm essentially does is create a set of decision boundaries, and we visualize the 2D case here. Any new data point on the left will be predicted as Setosa. Any new data point on the right will be predicted as Virginica, and any new data point in the middle will be predicted as versicolor. All machine learning models in scikit-learn are implemented as Python classes. These classes serve 2 purposes. They implement the algorithms for learning a model and predicting, while also storing all the information that is learned from the data. Training a model on the data is also called fitting the model on the data. In scikit-learn, we use the fit method to do this. Similarly, the predict method is what we use to predict the label of an unlabeled data point. Now, we are going to fit our very first classifier using scikit-learn. To do so, we first need to import it. For this, we import k neighbors classifier from sklearn.neighbors, we then instantiate our kneighbors classifier, set the number of neighbors equal to 6 and assign it to the variable knn. Then we can fit this classifier to our training set. Our training set is nothing but the labeled data. To do so, we apply the fit method to the classifier and pass it two arguments, the features and the labels or target as a NumPy array. The scikit-learn API requires firstly that you have the data as a NumPy array or as a pandas data frame. It also requires that the features take on continuous values such as the price of a house as opposed to categories like male or female. It also requires that there are no missing values in the data. All data sets that you should work with should satisfy these final two properties. In particular, the scikit-learn API requires that the features are in an array where each column is a feature and each row is a different observation or data point. Looking at the shape of iris data, we see that there are 150 observations of 4 features. Similarly, the target needs to be a single column with the same number of observations as the feature data. We see in this case, there are indeed also 150 labels. Also check out what is returned when we fit the classifier. It returns the classifier itself and modifies it to fit it to the data. Now that we have fit our classifier, let's use it to predict on some unlabeled data. Here we have a set of observations x new. We use the predict method on the classifier and pass it the data. Once again, the API requires that we pass the data as a NumPy array with features in columns and observations in rows. Checking out the shape of x new, we see that it has 3 rows and 4 columns, that is 3 observations and 4 features. Then we would expect calling knn.predict of x new to run a 3 by 1 array with a prediction of each observation or row in x new. And indeed it does. It predicts 1, which corresponds to versicolor for the first 2 observations, and 0, which corresponds to setosa for the third row. Now let's move on to our first exercise of the day. So now it is time to build your first classifier. In this exercise, you will fit a k nearest neighbors classifier to the voting dataset, which has been preloaded for us. So we simply use pd.readcsv. To that I pass our CSV file, okay? And what pd.readcsv does is that it automatically converts it to a data frame. So now df is our data frame. I will run this again. And we have our data frame. Now, as you can see, in the actual data frame, this was just the index, okay? But now while converting it to a data frame, it has now been assigned to a column. We don't want this. We want only this, okay? These are nothing but indexes, as you can see. So for that, we pass in a parameter called index_call equal to 0. And I run it again, and you can see that our indexes are now stored as indexes only. They are not stored in another column. Okay. So after importing our data set, we move on to our first step, which is import kneighbors classifier from a package called sklearn. Inside that package, there is a module called neighbors. So from sklearn.neighbors, there is a function in that module called kneighbors classifier. Kneighbors classifier. Okay. So our first step is done. Then it says create arrays x and y for the features and target variable. So x will be of features. So inside x, you want to place all the columns that will help you to predict. And inside y, you want to place that column that you want to predict. All right. So what we want to predict is we want to predict whether since this is a US congressional voting data set, so you want to predict whether the party is Republican or Democratic. Okay. So we put we select that column, place it in a variable called Y. Then all the other columns apart from this party column, we store it in X. So for that, we use df.drop. We drop this column. All the columns apart from this will be stored in X. By specifying axis equals 1, this tells us, this tells the compiler that you just refer this party label on the column labels. Okay. If you don't specify this, you would receive an error because by default, the compiler looks for row labels only. By specifying axis equals 1, you tell the compiler that look for the column labels. So it will look for the column label, and whenever it will encounter a label called party, it will just drop that column. Okay. So after doing that, the next step is instantiate our k-neighbors classifier with 6 neighbors by specifying the n_neighbors parameter. So we do that. We simply use this function that we have imported. And to that, we pass our first parameter, which is n neighbors. And we want 6 neighbors, right? So we just write 6. And then it says fit the classifier. So we take our instantiated model. Okay, so it is knn. So we write knn.fit. We use fit function. To that fit function, the first parameter should be our features. Okay, features are nothing but columns that will help us to predict. And the second parameter should be a target. A target is nothing but the column that you want to predict. So I will just run this entire command. And you will see that it returns a model object. Now we will move on to predicting. So we have another exercise on that. So now everything will do the same, except that we will also use another function called predict. Okay. So what we'll do is we will write the same steps. So we'll just copy this. Okay. Replace this entire thing by this. And at the end, we'll just write predict. Before that, I will just run this command again. Okay. It has run. I will use index.call to remove the labels. And you would see that this column would be disappeared. And it has disappeared. Now, what we do is we simply call the predict method on our fitted model. So we use this. To that, we use our predict, and then we pass in our X. Okay. So this would return a new column, all right, that has values that are predicted by the model. So what you can do is you can check each value side by side. You can check your Y and you can check YPRED and check the accuracy score. We will see ahead how to check for the accuracy score, but this is how you build a KNN model. Any doubts up till now, guys? Any doubt related to anything? How can we send 80% of our test data? Yes, we will see there is a function called train test split, and we will see an example here. How to choose n_neighbors. We will see that ahead too. So ideally, I will just cover that ahead. I don't want to confuse it with more problems. Won't Y and YPRED be the same as we predicted for X itself? No. YPRED is as predicted by the model, right? Y is your true column. Okay. Y is the actual column. YPRED is your predicted column. So if all the values are the same, then you have a very good model, right? But ideally, there will be a minor difference between Y and YPRED. You won't have 100% accuracy while predicting YPRED. How to find accuracy? Yes, there is a function called accuracy score that will look ahead. There is an exercise for that. prediction operation. Can you explain again? Okay. So to build a model, there's just three simple steps, Nandita. First, you instantiate it. Okay, this is how you instantiate. You just write that function. To that function, you just pass a parameter, whatever that parameter the function takes. Here it takes n neighbors. We pass in the number of neighbors equal to 6. Okay, and our model would be instantiated. Now, how to make the model learn from our data? To make the model learn our data, what we pass is a fit method. This makes our model learn on the data. Okay, once the model has learned, now by predicting, this is just creating a new column. So for simplicity, consider this. Here you have just created a book. Okay, by this step, the student is reading that book, and by predict, the student is giving an exam on it. Okay, so this is how you do it. Yes, exactly. You should take a odd value of k, which we'll look ahead why we take odd value of k. Ideally, this n underscore neighbor should be odd. The reason of which we will see ahead. Any doubts up till now how to fit predict? Just three simple steps: instantiate, fit. Fit is nothing but making the model learn, and this is predicting. Okay, just suppose this is just creating a book, this is reading the book, and this is giving an exam on the book. Should we move ahead, guys? Any doubts up till now? So now that we know how to fit a classifier and use it to predict the labels of previously unseen data, we need to figure out how to measure its performance. That is, we need a metric. In classification problems, accuracy is a commonly used metric. The accuracy of a classifier is defined as the number of correct predictions divided by the total number of data points. This begs the question though, which data do we use to compute accuracy? What we are really interested in is how well our model will perform on new data. That is, samples that the algorithm has never seen before. Well, you could compute the accuracy on the data that you have already used to fit the classifier. However, as this data was used to train it, the classifier's performance will not be indicative of how well it can generalize to unseen data. For this reason, it is a common practice to split your data into two sets, a training set and a test set. You train or fit the classifier on the training set, then you make predictions on the labeled test set and compare these predictions with the known labels. You then compute the accuracy of your predictions. To do this, we first import train test split from sklearn.model selection. We then use the train test split function to randomly split our data. The first argument will be the feature array. The second, the targets or labels. The test size keyword argument specifies what proportion of the original data is used for the test set. Lastly, the random state KWARG sets a seed for the random number generator that splits the data into train and test. Setting the seed with the same argument later will allow you to reproduce the exact same split and your downstream results. Train test split returns 4 arrays: the training data stored as xtrain, the test data stored as xtest, the training labels stored as ytrain, and the test labels stored as ytest. So we unpack these into 4 variables: xtrain, xtest, ytrain, and ytest respectively. By default, train test split splits the data into 75% train and 25% test data, which is a good rule of thumb. We specify the size of the test size using the keyword test size argument. So if you don't want to use the default test size of 25%, you can use this parameter called test size and set it to 30% or whatever percent you want. So it is also a best practice to perform your split so that the split reflects the labels on your data. That is, you want the labels to be distributed in train and test sets as they are in the original data set. To achieve this, we use the keyword argument stratify equals y, where y is the list or array containing the labels. We then instantiate our k nearest neighbors classifier, fit it to the training data using the fit method, make our predictions on the test data, and store the results as ypred. Printing them shows that the predictions take on three unique values as expected. To check out the accuracy of a model, we use the score method of the model and pass it xtest and ytest. See here that the accuracy of our model is approximately 95%, which is pretty good for an out-of-the-box model. Recall that we recently discussed the concept of a decision boundary. Here, we visualize a decision boundary for several increasing values of k in a KNN model. Note that as KNN increases, the decision boundary gets smoother, less curvy. Therefore, we consider it to be a less complex model than those with lower k. Generally, complex models run the risk of being sensitive to noise in the specific data that you have, rather than reflecting general trends in the data. This is known as overfitting. So if you increase k even more and make the model even simpler, then the model will perform less well on both the test and training sets as indicated in this schematic figure known as model complexity curve. This is known as underfitting. We can see that there is a sweet spot in the middle that gives us the best performance on the test set. So that is the value that you should choose for your n underscore neighbors. All right. Someone asked the question before, right? How do you choose it? So this is how you do it so that you don't overfit as well as underfit. All right. So up until now, you have been performing binary classification. Since the target variable or the target column had only two possible outcomes. I have, however, got to perform multi-class classification in the slides where the target variable could take on three possible outcomes. In the following exercises, you will be working with the MNIST digits recognition dataset, which has 10 classes, the digits 0 through 9. A reduced version of the MNIST dataset is available in the scikit-learn's included datasets, and that is the one that we will use in this exercise. So each sample in this scikit-learn dataset is an 8x8 image representing a handwritten digit. Each pixel is represented by an integer in the range of 0 to 16, indicating varying levels of black. Recall that scikit-learn's built-in datasets are of type bunch, which are dictionary-like objects. Hopefully for the MNIST dataset, scikit-learn provides an images key in addition to the data and target keys that we will see ahead. Because it is a 2D array of the images corresponding to each sample, this images key will be useful for visualizing the images as we will see in the exercise. On the other hand, the data key contains the feature array, that is the images as a flattened array of 64 pixels. Don't worry, we'll see everything visually. We'll see how we can do that. So now moving ahead to our first step, it says import datasets from sklearn, okay, and matplotlib as PLT. Okay, so we have already imported our packages. Then our second step says load the digits dataset using the dot load digits method on datasets. So we just use this datasets, and to that we pass a method called, we use a method called to load underscore digits. Okay, this will load that digit dataset that we were talking about. So after loading, we move on to a third step. It says print the keys and description of digits. So we do that. The keys can be printed by writing the keys method, and the description, you just want a description. So you just write digits dot DACCR. This will print the description of that data set. Since then this data set description was provided, so you can access it by this. Not in all data sets will the description be provided. All right. So now for just for understanding, let's print the shape of the images and data keys. So let's do that. We just pass digits dot images key. We talked about two keys, right? Images key and data key. So we are just printing the shape. That is how many rows and columns they have. Next is digits dot data. Okay, and this is just for your visual purposes. All right, I'm just plotting it to show you what the data contains. The model part we'll see ahead in the exercise. This is just to show you what the data contains. And here you can see, as I was telling, the data set is of digits. Okay, so data set is of images, where each image represents a particular digit. Here we are just loading the same data set. All right, guys, nothing new. So we are just loading the same data set. I will run the command again, and our data set would be loaded. It is loaded. Now we will move on to our first step. It says import classifier from sklearn.neighbors and the train test split function from the sklearns package. And inside that sklearn package, there is a module called model selection. So let's import both the packages. So let's do that from sklearn.neighbors import neighbors classifier. I guess this would be capital. And then it says import train test split function. So we'll import it from sklearn dot model selection import train test split. So now we have imported it successfully. The next step says create an array for the features using digits.data and an array for the target using digits.target. So earlier in the previous exercise, we created X and Y, right? Where in the Y, this party column was present, and in the X, all the other columns were present. Fortunately, all the X and Y are separated in this data set. So X is already available inside a key called data. Okay, and Y is already available inside a key called target. So we'll just use that. So inside this digits data set, right? Inside this, we'll just write data to get all the features. And then we will use the key target to get our target variable. So we have stored features and label features and target in X and Y. Next comes our train test split. So how do you split it? You use this function train test split. So use it as first parameter will be our X. Sorry. First parameter will be our X, which is our features. The second parameter will be our target. Target is the column that you want to predict. And what is our test size supposed to be? It is supposed to be 20%. So we'll just write 0.2. Random state, you can assign anything. For reproducibility, let's assign 42. So if you want to obtain this same split as me on this data, then use this random state. Next, it says create a KNN classifier with 7 neighbors and fit it to the training data. So we do that. We use this function. So we instantiate it. We pass n underscore neighbors equal to 7. Then our steps are again the same. we fit our instantiated model. To the fit function, we pass xtrain and ytrain now. Remember earlier we fitted on the entire x and y, right? What I mean by that, that is we made our model learn the entire data set. Okay. But now what we are doing is we are keeping 20% of the data separate, and we want to make the model learn only the rest 80% of the data, so that we can then use the separate 20% to test the model on, to test whether the model has not memorized, and it can perform better. It can predict better. What does random state do? Okay, so this train test split, what it does, it splits the data randomly, right, into 80% and 20%. So 80% is in training data and 20% is in testing data. It does this randomly. So if I just remove this and if I do it each time, then suppose some columns would be in test set one time, but in another time it might be in the trained set. Are you understanding? So in one time it might be in the trained set, and the other time it might be in the test set. So it does it randomly, but to obtain the exact same split, okay, so you can use a random state. So if you want to obtain the exact same split as me, you can use 42. Since I am also using 42 here, you can assign any value here, 1, 10, 1000, anything. So now we are fitting only on a training set. So instead of X and Y, okay, what we will pass here is X train and Y train. So let's do that. X train and Y train. And next, what we do is we just calculate the score. So there is a function called score that you can use. Now to that score function, you pass in your X test. Okay. And then you pass in your Y test. So you can see the score. Stratified won't be used here, right? You can use stratify. So I will explain how stratify works. Suppose you have a column wherein you have 30 rows. Okay. So 30 entries in that column. Suppose you have only 5 unique values. So such that the value 1 has 6 rows. The value 2 has 6 rows, 3 has 6 rows, 4 has 6 rows, and 5 has 6 rows. This makes 30 entries, right? So suppose I put 50% in training and 50% in test. So what? Suppose since this compiler does this randomly, suppose the compiler splits in such a way that all the 6 values of 1 are in the train set, all the 6 values of 2 are also in the train set, but the 3 values of the value 3 are in the train set. Are you understanding? So there is so 4 and 5 values are not included, right? The values of 4 and 5 are not included in the train set. So how to mitigate it is you set stratify equals y. This would tell the compiler that you want all the values, okay, all the unique values in the same proportions. So now if I split 50% of our data into train and test, then and if I set stratify equals y, what I tell the compiler is that I want equal proportions of each value. So the compiler will put 3 values of 1, 3 values of 2, 3 values of 3, 3 values of 4, and 3 values of 5. So each value is getting included in the train set in the same proportion. So this was an exercise. Next, moving on to another exercise, which is about overfitting and underfitting. So here we will draw the plot, Sachin, that you were talking about. So remember the model complexity curve that I showed in the slides. I'll just show it to you again. This is the model complexity curve. So now you will create such a curve for the digits dataset. In this exercise, you will compute and plot the training and testing accuracy scores for a variety of neighbor values. That is for neighbor 4, neighbor 5, neighbor equals to 6, or so on. Okay. So for a variety of values, we will do it. So by observing how the accuracy scores differ for the training and test sets with different values of neighbors, that is with different values of K, you will develop your intuition for overfitting and underfitting. So let's dive into it. Here we are simply importing the digits data set. I will run it and it will import it for us. Next, as done before, we simply store our data and target in X and Y and do train test split as we have done earlier. Next, okay, so this is done. Next, we want to draw a plot. So how to draw a plot? I will just show you how np.arange works. So if you type np.arange 1, 9, what this would give you is an array starting from 1 and ending at 9 minus 1. It doesn't include the ninth element, all right? So if you want to include 9, you just increase this by 1 and this would include 9 as well. So this is how np.arange works. It creates values between this and this minus 1 with equal intervals such that all the values are of equal intervals. So that is why we use np.arange. So here, since we have used np.arange 1, 9, so this is the array that will be returned and it will be stored in this variable. Any doubt up till now how np.arange works? Next, what we do is we compute here the len of this variable. The len of this variable would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So it would be 8. So then what does np.empty does is it creates an array of 8 elements. I will show it to you how. np.empty, let's pass in 8. So it creates an array of 8 elements such that all the values are random, okay, between 0 and 1. So this is what np.empty creates. It creates an array between values 0 and 1 of this many elements, of 8 elements. So if you count it, this must be 8. So this array is stored in train accuracy. Similarly, you do this one more time. Since this is done randomly, right? So you would get another random value for your test accuracy. Ideally, this train and test be computed like this as we had done. Okay, this is our training set score, and similarly, if you just replace this by train and train, you would get your train test score. But this is just to show we are just simulating it. We are just passing random values to see how it works. So that is what I am showing you. Ideally, you just use the score function and you just do it. Okay. But this is just for a single value, right? For a single value of K. However, here we are doing it for how many values? We are doing for 8 values of K. So that is why we are simulating it. We are not repeating the process 8 times. We are just simulating. So suppose if you don't want to simulate it, repeat this 8 times. So the first score, okay, you put it in your first value over here. The second model that you perform, the score you put it here. The third model score should be here, and so on. If you don't want to simulate this, you can build this manually as well. But this would be a time-consuming approach. So now let's move ahead. We'll just instantiate this. All right. So now what we are doing is just instantiating it. So we take this function, okay, k-neighbors function, k-neighbors classifier function. To that, inside our n underscore neighbors, we pass a value of k. So I will show you how enumerate works in a second. I will just pass this k. I will show you how enumerate works. So if you take enumerate of, so what this does is creates a key value pair. I will show you how. Suppose you pass 8, right? Or you pass this neighbors function, or you pass this list, suppose. And if I just print it, print ABC, no issues. I will just store this, enumerate. Okay, in short, what I was telling you is, suppose you have a value, right? Suppose if I just print this array, it is just returning that object. It is not able to print it, no issues. So what it does is, for this first element, it would, so what we are doing is in this line, right? For I comma k enumerate neighbors. So it will create a key value pair such that your first key will be your index. So in this case, it would be 0. And the second would be your value, in this case 1. Okay, and it will do it for the other 8 values. All right, understood? So the first pair would be 0, 1. The second pair would be 1, 2. Since this is an index of 1, remember the index starts from 1. All right. So this would be a pair of 1, 2. Since the index is 2, so this would be a pair of 2, 3. And this is how enumerate works. So if we do for I, k enumerate neighbors, so for each pairs it will iterate. So for first pair, it will do for 0, 1, right? Since this has an index of 0. So 0 will be stored in I and 1 will be stored in k. And then we will have a k neighbors classifier with neighbors equal to 1. Similarly, after doing the whole process, it will loop again. Then it will go on to the second. So now this has an index of 1, right? So this would be 1, 2. So I would be 1 and k would be 2. So now neighbors would have a value of 2. It will do it for all the 8 values. This still returns an object. But anyways, you get the point, right? What I was trying to explain enumerate. Any doubts regarding enumerate, how it works? We are yet to complete this whole function, but any doubt regarding how enumerate works? So what we are doing is we are looping for different values of k. Is this notebook uploaded to GitHub? No, RK, it is not. Any doubt, or should we proceed ahead? I guess it is clear, so we can proceed ahead. Then after instantiating, as I mentioned, it is a 3-step process: instantiate, fit, and predict. Now we will fit. So we write knn.fit. We'll fit on X train and Y train. X train and Y train. Okay, after fitting, what we do is we compute the accuracy on the training set. So as we had done earlier in the exercise, we had computed the accuracy of test set, right? So now we will do that. Knn.score. First, we will do it for training set and then for test set. So X train and Y train, and then X test and Y test. Use the same knn score method, knn score function, sorry. Next, we are simply passing this neighbors, which is an array. Okay. So if you just look at the plot, what is our x-axis? It is just a list of values from starting from whatever, 0 to whatever. Okay. So we want that, right, list. So we are just passing this np.arange that we created, that is stored in our neighbors variable. So we are just passing neighbors variable as our x-axis. Our test accuracy should be our y-axis. Then again, since we are wanting to draw 2 plots, right, on the same graph, so that is why we call plt.plot again. First time on a train on a test accuracy, and second time on a train accuracy. We label them so that this label, what it does is it creates this thing. The label that you see here, it creates this. After that, we simply write what plt.legend does is it draws the label. So the label that you see here, plt.legend draws it. Simply you pass X label and Y label for your X axis and Y axis. I will just run this. So as you can see, now we have created plots as we had seen earlier. So this is how you can create plots. Okay. So based on this, you can create, you can select your K. Any doubts regarding anything? We have more concepts to complete. Any doubt how you can do that? Or is it clear for everyone? No, sir. Good, Yash. Very good. So we'll move on. So in classification, we have seen that you can use accuracy, the fraction of correctly classified samples, to measure model performance. However, accuracy is not always a useful metric. Consider a spam classification problem in which 99% of the emails are real and only 1% are spam. I could build a model that classifies all emails as real. This model would be correct 99% of the time and thus have an accuracy of 99%, which sounds great. However, this naive classifier does a horrible job of predicting spam. It never predicts spam at all, so it completely fails at its original purpose. The situation when one class is frequent is called class imbalance. Because the class of real emails contains way more instances than the class of spam, this is a very common situation in practice and requires a much more nuanced metric to assess the performance of a model. Given a binary classifier, such as a spam email example, we can draw up a 2x2 matrix that summarizes predictive performance called a confusion matrix. Across the top are the predicted labels. Down the side, the actual labels, such as you see here. Given any model, we can fill in the confusion matrix according to its predictions. In the top left square, we have the number of spam emails correctly labeled. In the bottom right square, we have the number of real emails correctly labeled. In the top right, the number of spam emails incorrectly labeled. And in the bottom left, the number of real emails incorrectly labeled. Note that correctly labeled spam emails are referred to as true positives and correctly labeled real emails as true negatives, while incorrectly labeled spam will be referred to as false negatives and incorrectly labeled real emails as false positives. Usually, the class of interest is called the positive class. As we are trying to detect spam, this makes spam the positive class. Which class you call positive is really up to you. So why do we care about the confusion matrix? First, notice that you can retrieve accuracy from the confusion matrix is the sum of the diagonal divided by the total sum of the matrix. There are several other important metrics you can easily calculate from the confusion matrix. Precision, which is the number of true positives divided by the total number of true positives and false positives. It is also called the positive predicted value or PPV. In our case, this is the number of correctly labeled spam emails divided by the total number of emails classified as spam. Recall, which is the number of true positives divided by the total number of true positives and false negatives. This is also called sensitivity, hit rate, or true positive rate. The F1 score is defined as 2 times the product of the precision and recall divided by the sum of the precision and recall. In other words, it's the harmonic mean of precision and recall. To put it in simple language, high precision means that a classifier had a low false positive rate. That is, not many real emails were predicted as being spam. Intuitively, high recall means that a classifier predicted most positive or spam emails correctly. Let's now compute the confusion matrix along with the matrix for the classifier we trained on the voting dataset in the exercise. We import classification report and confusion matrix from sklearn.matrix. So we import classification report and confusion matrix from sklearn.matrix. As always, we instantiate a classifier, split the data into train and test, fit the training data, and predict the labels of the test set. To compute the confusion matrix, we pass the test set labels and the predicted labels to the function confusion matrix. To compute the resulting matrix, we pass the same arguments to classification report, which outputs a string containing all the relevant metrics, which you can see here. For all metrics in scikit-learn, the first argument is always the true label, and the second and the prediction is always the second argument. Now let's move ahead. So this is how you compute it. The first parameter will be your true labels and the second parameter will be your predicted labels. Okay, so this is how you can compute confusion matrix and classification report. And you have seen true positives, false positives and everything, right? This is the confusion matrix that we talked about. And you also saw the formulas for precision recall F1 score and everything. Moving ahead. So now that you are developing a field for judging how well your models are performing, it's time to supercharge them. We have seen that when fitting a linear regression, what we are really doing is choosing parameters for the model that fit the data the best. So we also saw that we have to choose a value for K in choosing the best. So we had to choose the value of K for developing a good KNN model. Such parameters, can you please mute your mics, guys? Thanks. So such parameters, the ones that need to be specified before fitting a model, are called hyperparameters. In other words, these are parameters that cannot be explicitly learned by fitting the model. Herein lies a fundamental key for building a successful model. Choosing the correct hyperparameter. The basic idea is to try a whole bunch of different values, fit all of them separately, see how well each performs, and choose the best one. This is called hyperparameter tuning, and doing so in this fashion is the current standard. Now, use of a hyperparameter is that it is essential to use cross-validation, as using train test split alone would risk overfitting the hyperparameter to the test set. The basic idea is as follows. We choose a grid of possible values we want to try for the hyperparameter or hyperparameters. For example, if we had two hyperparameters, C and alpha, the grid of values to test could look like this. Okay, this is for ridge regression, guys. I've just included this example for ridge regression. So in that function, there are parameters called alpha and C. In KNN, there is a parameter called K, right? So this will be different. So as you can see, the grid of values the grid of values to test would look like this. We then perform K-fold cross-validation for each point in the grid. That is, for each choice of hyperparameter or combination of hyperparameters. We then choose for our model the choice of hyperparameters that perform the best. This is called a grid search, and in scikit-learn, we implement it using the class grid search CV. We import grid search CV from sklearn.model selection. We then specify the hyperparameter as a dictionary in which the keys are the hyperparameter names, such as n neighbors in KNN or alpha in lasso regression. You can see the documentation of each model for the name of its hyperparameters. The values in the grid dictionary are lists containing the values we wish to tune the relevant hyperparameters or hyperparameters over. If we specify multiple parameters, all possible combinations will be tried. As always, we instantiate our classifier. We then use grid search CV and pass it our model. That is the grid we wish to tune over and the number of folds that we wish to use. This returns a grid search object that you can then fit to the data, and this fit performs the actual grid search in place. We can then apply the attributes best params and best score respectively to retrieve the hyperparameters that perform the best along with the mean cross validation score over that fold. Okay, guys, thanks for attending. Thanks everyone. We'll meet again in another webinar. All right.